today's episode is not going to be different than the other ones. It's another episode where we're going to bring challenges and we're going to also bring solutions, insights, tools, strategies, anything that helps you on your daily activities as a customer success manager. Or maybe if you're that person who wants to transition into customer success, this is a world where we are open to receive anyone who wants to be part of this amazing community. Today's episode is the art of upselling and cross-selling in customer success. And for that, we have an amazing guest. But before we introduce our guest today, Nav, um, how are you? How's everything over there in Sydney? It's 7:30, 8:30 over there?
No, the times have changed. It's 9:45 now. So perfect time. The weather's beautiful. The summer has kicked in. So happy days.
Oh my God, that's always a challenge. When time zones changes, I don't, but good to know.
Well, it's
We were
definitely
just
better than the
discussing
7:30
that.
ones. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Well, we were just discussing that because we fell back and Australia sprung forward. Now that puts us 2 hours apart instead of 4 hours apart. Although you are tomorrow morning and we are the day before afternoon. And
Yeah.
anyway.
So far tomorrow is pretty good, Jan.
Excellent.
That's
Excellent.
why
Looking forward
that's
to
why
it.
this week we're also recording a Saturday, NAV Saturday, because I made a small mistake. So sorry for that,
It's okay. I won't hold it against you, Baron.
And yeah, so today's episode is upselling and cross-selling. Like we as customer success managers, we definitely have to sell. It's not all about retaining. It's not about just keeping the customer happy. It's also about revenue. It's about business. It's about money. And for this, we have an amazing guest who is a community builder who started CS Office Hours. I guess now it sounds the bells, right? You know who I'm talking about. A weekly discussion for customer success leaders, customer success managers, and people transitioning to customer success. So it's available for everyone. Our guest today is Jan Yon, who and CCO of Jan Young CX. She provides courses, coaching, consulting in customer led growth and alignment of go to market and post sales motions without leaving aside awards like top 25 influencer and top 50 women leadership leaders in customer success. Jan, thank you so much for being here with us. It's an honor to have you here.
Oh, it's really fun to be here. I'm so glad that you asked me. Any opportunity I get to sort of geek out about customer success, I just sort of raise my hand and say yes. So, and I
Amazing.
should mention before we dig in though, so the name of CS Office Hours and things like that, all of those things are going to be rebranded and changed
Ooh.
pretty soon. Yeah, so there'll be because we started off having weekly office hours, but now we have a community, we have a book club, we have job search cohorts and collaboration groups, and so that's all going to the new name will reflect those things. And then I'm also going to trip you up a little and change the name of Jan Young CX
Oh,
to
wow.
step up GDM, step up go to market, so that I can not only help CS leaders get to that executive level and work with their executive colleagues, but also because I really believe that go-to-market alignment is what we need to do. And I love the topic that you've chosen for today because
Mm-hmm.
it's really about go-to-market alignment when, in terms of the sales process from, through marketing, sales, CS, product, we're all part of go-to-market and we're all
Mm-hmm.
part of that customer experience and making certain that the customer is successful. And through that, making certain that we're selling the correct product. They say the right person, the right product at the right time, right?
Yeah.
And that's exactly what it takes, not just to sell them initially, but to sell them at any point, right? And there's so much that goes into that post-sales motion. So yeah, as you can tell, I'm already talking too long about it because I get so excited about it. So let's dig in. Let me know what questions you have, and
Yeah.
I'm ready to get started.
Hold your horses. Hold your horses there.
Yes.
Because first, Jan, I really want to invite everyone to the CS office hours. But what's the new name again? Sorry.
Oh, well, the new name for CS office hours we're still working through.
Sounds like a
It
surprise.
might, yeah, we've got a few ideas and I'll probably post about it and get some people voting. Got some really good ideas, but I will share that with you. For now, while we're having this conversation, I'm going to have to leave it as a surprise because it's still a
Okay.
surprise to me.
Exciting.
Yeah,
Very
I like that.
exciting.
I like that. But
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
either or, it doesn't matter the name is gonna have. Like, people, please go to the about section and
Mm.
go, because in the about section you're gonna find information about this, and it's so fun. It's not like a webinar where you just hear people talking. It's so different. It's a different dynamic. You have a voice. You have breakout sessions as well. You speak to other customer success managers. It's amazing. So go for it. Go for it. But going back
Yeah,
into
well,
Mhm.
and it's a mix. You might end up talking to CS leaders or people transitioning into
Okay.
CS who have all different kinds of experience, but it really is about talking to each other. Absolutely.
And you have
Connecting, contributing.
EMEA friendly time zone now.
Yes, exactly. Anyway,
Yeah.
sorry. You go ahead, Bear. Go ahead.
No, it's perfect. It's another tool that we need to share out there. And
Yep.
well, upsell, cross sell, selling, negotiating in customer success. And that's something that we also do on a daily basis. And people do that with us. Like, if we go to any fast food and they're going to offer us that first sell, they're going to offer
Hmm.
us that burger. And once we
Hmm.
make that sell, sir, ma'am, would you like a dessert? Would you like anything else? That
Do you want
happens
fries with that?
exactly.
Do you wanna upsize that? Yep.
Yeah.
And we don't even get upset. We just said no or thanks, right? We don't
Hmm.
even notice it. And that's the idea in customer success as well, because we want to upsell and sell more and more and more. But I think it's also a reaction. It's a positive reaction. But to start to start with the basics here, Nav and Jan, should we use the word sell in customer success with our customers, or should we use a fancy name, Jan? What do you think about this?
Fancy name. I'm not sure what the fancy name would be, but
Mm,
I I'm not sure that there's really ever a conversation where you say, "Oh, I would like to sell you something." Do you know what I
mhm.
mean? Like, I don't know, even if you're directly in sales, that you say, I would like to sell you this today. Like, when did anybody, even when they say, would you like fries with that? They don't say, would you like me to sell you fries with that? They just say,
Uh-huh.
would you like fries with that? Right. And so I think that if you're really kind of getting to the idea of should CSM sell, I think that's something that unfortunately has been controversial for some folks, but I don't accept that controversy. I think
Okay.
that ultimately I first of all, when I was an individual contributor, I had that responsibility of selling initially and being responsible for the customer all the way through, and
Mhm.
focusing on the upsells and cross sells and what was needed in the marketplace and what should we be developing and going back, to the engineering team and things like that, right? And so in that respect, I think if you're really looking out for your customers and if you understand what's happening in the marketplace and what your competitors are doing, then you want to not only be aware of what's going to make you more competitive in the marketplace, but also what's going to help your customers. And in fact, I'm working on a post right now that's really about this topic. And it's
Mm,
when you think about it in the pre-sales motion, they in order to have a successful sale, you have to have the right person, the right place, the right person, the right product at the right time, right? Those are the three conditions. And when you've met those conditions, and a few other things, but those three basics, they're going to sign on the dotted line, right? Because it's the right person that's making the decision. You've sold them the right product, and it's the right time. They need it right now. So in the post sales motion, you think about how that's needed. But what if you get it wrong? In pre sales, if you get the wrong person, that's fine. You just go and find who the right person is. In pre sales, if you get the wrong product, that's okay. Then you just find out, well, is there a different product you need? Or, oh,
mhm,
you don't need our products? I'm going to move on.
mhm, mhm.
If it's not the right time in pre sales, then you nurture and you stay in touch with them and you make certain that you develop that relationship. And then when it is the right time, they're ready. And then you sell it to them. So it's really like no harm, no foul in pre-sales if it isn't the right, one of those three conditions aren't met. But in
Yeah.
post-sales, if you suggest a product to someone who doesn't need it, they're like, who are you? Why are you trying to sell me? I don't trust you now. You're trying to sell me something I don't even need. Or if it's not the right person, then they're like, well, I don't know, deer in headlights. I don't know if I'm the,
That
that's, you
uncomfortable
need to
moment.
have the
Yeah.
right buyer that you're talking to in order to have the right relationship. So you're going to the right person. Or if it's the wrong time, again, they're like, why are you doing this? Why are you selling to me? Why are you selling to me now? You don't even understand me. You don't care about me. And so in any of those things aren't right, then they lose trust, right? And you
Yeah.
have to trust somebody in order to buy from them or to work with them. So now you're trying to fix that relationship because you can't just go out to the marketplace. You have these customers, they're your book of business, right? So in that respect, it's not that you can't sell, it's that have you identified that it's the right person, the right product, and the right
In the right
time,
time. Yeah. Sometimes customer success managers, we want to sell in the first meeting. It's like, should we give the first kiss in the first date? Right? So
right?
should that be the right example? I'm not sure. Help me here enough. But what do you think about actually,
It's the whole
right?
concept of you buy them a coffee before you take them out for dinner, right?
Yeah. But I mean, normally you don't sell in the first call, right?
Okay, I actually know of some folks who in the onboarding process end up
Wow.
identifying that that
Identifying, yeah.
they haven't been sold in all of the right products or all the products that they actually could use to make them successful. So it's not that you can't identify it early on, but at the same time, if you have any of those three conditions that aren't met, if you aren't talking to the right person, if you aren't telling about the right product that they actually need and is going to help them be successful, or if you're talking to them at a time when they're not ready to buy, then it doesn't make sense.
Hmm.
It's not that you couldn't do it even in the first meeting that you have with them as a CSM. If what you're doing is you're asking those discovery questions, you're actively listening, you understand what their needs are, and you say, hey, I see that you're expecting to get these kinds of results and outcomes, but you don't actually have our tool that would help you do that. We should talk about that some more. And then they
Hmm.
would be like, oh, wow, really? Yeah, no, I need these outcomes. So, okay, well, let's first talk about these things that you can do and blah, blah, blah. And then let's talk about these other things too,
Hmm.
because then,
Yep.
then what are you trying to do? You're just trying to help your customer be successful. And in that process, you help your company be more successful too. There you go. That's my opinion.
Yeah, I think one of the challenges is the traditional CSMs that have come up through through their career and become strategic CSMs and things. The way the traditional customer success was all value based. It was all talking about what's good for the customer. And when I started in customer success, the mantra was you're the extension of your customer's team, and you fight the battles for them. Right. That mentality is shifting quite a bit in the industry because with the focus on sustainable growth for SaaS products, the go-to-market strategy is to land and then expand, and then expanding piece is really important for CSMs to carry. So, I think when we talk about selling and talking about sell as like a concept for CSMs, it becomes this fear of, oh, like but that's not my job. Like, how am I supposed to do that? And the reality is, I think we need to, like, first of all, I think every interaction that you're having with the customer, you're reselling some value of your product, whether it's the services that you offer or the value that you're trying to prove with the product that you've sold to them, which would have been done in the pre-sales process in a different sort of format anyway. So
Hmm.
the idea that when we look at like things like business reviews and making sure that we understand what the long-term value of a customer is, and then trying to align that with product mapping and things like that. What you're actually doing is pseudo selling the future value, and with that comes expansion opportunities, things like that. What we're talking about now really is standardizing this in a way where it's actually fits with a company's go-to-market strategy, where you're landing in one value proposition and then having CSMs drive that level of expansion with a number to hold. And that's where we start to lose CSMs, when we say you need to own a number to be able to drive that.
Well, okay. First of all, when you're talking about the advocacy part at the very beginning of what you were just saying, I do want to make the case that we still do need to build advocates.
Absolutely,
right?
yes,
Absolutely. It's
absolutely.
not that we don't do that as part of our role, but the other is,
Absolutely.
I think that in the post-sales motion, it depends on how many customers you have, right? In terms of if you can sign up for a number or if it's more about projections. If you have thousands of customers, then, well, first of all, that's more of a one-to-many relationship. It's not really a named CSM process usually in that case. But let's say you
Right.
have thousands of customers, then you can basically figure that there's going to be sort of numbers you can guesstimate that are going to be upsold, right? But if it's where you have maybe 100 customers and you're trying to give a number, if it isn't based on something that's a projection of what you really think is going to happen, then I don't know how signing up for a number helps your process at all, because then you're trying to sell something to customers that you may not have those three conditions met. You may not be selling to the right person, the right product, and the right time. It's like, well, I've been signed up for this number to get to this by the end of the quarter. It's not the right time for the customer, but I'm going to try and meet my quarterly objective. Well, then you're meeting your own objective. You're not meeting your customer's objective. Then they don't end up buying, or they don't end up trusting you. They end up trying to move. They end up churning and those kinds of things, right? And so then that doesn't help your company anyway.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Yeah,
that's
that's a fair
my
point.
feeling on those numbers.
Yeah, definitely. And now we're gonna jump into, because it's time for those challenges that everyone is waiting for. So let's go into the challenges. What challenges are you going through when it comes to our upselling and cross-selling, or selling in general, and negotiating? The challenge number one of the day is mindset shift. Where shifting the mindset from reactive to proactive can be challenging sometimes. We keep wasting time doing what support is there to do. And I'm not saying that we should not do some reactive tasks. It is important as well, but we have to keep more a proactive mindset. So I have a question here, Jan. What are those proactive tasks that can help increase the possibilities for selling to our customers? Now, you gave a really good formula, but is there any specific proactive tasks that you would recommend to those customer success managers listening right now?
Well, yeah. And actually, the topic that we're doing tonight in CS Office Hours is around metrics, right? And part of what you
Mm.
need to do as a CSM, and Erica Villarreal, who's going to be co-leading it with me, has a really great um, spreadsheet that she's created intended for CSMs. And she has a video that goes with it. And it's all about how you manage your book of business, right? And so the proactive thing that you can do is manage your book of business to understand who needs to renew, who needs, who might be just in a good place to be able, you might be able to expand or upsell, cross-sell something to them, right? And so if you're tracking these things about your book of business, then whether you do it on the Excel sheet the way that she has, or if you have other tools that will help you manage that, you should be proactively setting your agenda with your customers, as well as proactively listening to them on what their agenda is, and
Mm-hmm.
understanding then where the opportunities are in terms of their business agenda as well.
That's yeah, I think that's an interesting way of looking at it, and I think one of the things that CSMs can easily put into their normal sort of day-to-day process, especially talking about value and future value and things like that, is to understand where they fit best with where, the opportunity and propensity for expansion and additional, revenue is. And I think just, I guess what would be very helpful, and those who are listening as well, there's training out there that you can get on how to look for that, right? Because that's sort of where, you want to try and upskill a little bit to make sure that, when you've got all of this incredible information that you've got from your customers, how do you actually use that to understand where your opportunities for expansion are, and then being able to drive that through. And that brings us into the next point, which is, even when you look at things like renewals and expansions, negotiation is obviously a big part of that, right? And there are lots of different frameworks I've seen where CSMs or CS teams identify opportunities and then potentially pass it on to a sales team, or they do it themselves. But to a certain extent, I think there's, a certain level of negotiation skills that are required within the CSM team, especially, if you're doing renewals. I've, even when I was an individual contributor, trying to convince somebody to renew on the same product, for the same pricing, especially when you were going through COVID and everyone's saying, we don't have as much budget, it required a lot of negotiation skills. So, based on the fact that some don't actually feel comfortable with the negotiation with their customers, how do you see, I guess, developing negotiation skills? Like, where does it start for a customer success manager? First of all, how should they upskill, and second of all, how should they even approach a conversation like that with a customer?
I love that you brought up negotiation skills, because that is something that, there's so much out there. Certainly there's books out there like Chris Voss's Never Split the Difference, or there's a classic, Getting to Yes, right? Those types of things are, should be part of how CSMs think of upskilling, so that they better understand how to, actively listen and engage. Bob London also has a lot of guides out there that he's provided, where you can just look at different kinds of intriguing questions to ask your customer to try and elicit more information, right? And so when you're thinking about it, the more information that you have, where you understand if it's the right moment and understand what's important to your customer, but then also the skills that you build up that are actual negotiation skills, right?
Mm-hmm.
That all of those things will help you with your confidence when you go into a conversation. And that's also really important, is to feel comfortable in whatever you're bringing up. And if you understand your book of business, so you've got your numbers together, if you understand your customer, you've been doing discovery questions and active listening and engaging with them, if you have their numbers and sort of the nuance understanding, then when you go in and you're suggesting, hey, I think this product is what you can use because it's going to help you meet your business objectives, and this price is actually going to help you because it'll help you make even this much more money potentially, that sort of thing. Like any of those kinds of questions that they may have in it, you want to understand how to bring that up in a way where they're not feeling sold to, but where they feel like there's a solution that's going to help them meet their goals, right? And if you're doing that and you understand the negotiation skills, that you can learn and pick up in lots of different places besides reading and practicing and things like that, you should be able to get there and feel more comfortable with it. The other thing too is, sales has so much enablement and CS often doesn't. Go and sit in on some of the sales enablement. They go through and learn how to sell your products all the time. Now it's to a different audience. It's someone who hasn't used your product before. But what are the objections that they're hearing? Maybe you would hear those objections, or maybe they would be different. Talk to the other CSMs on your team, share what you're hearing, or make a list of what you think you might hear. Help each other. Have those conversations and practice them before you get into a conversation with a customer. And if you don't feel comfortable with that, bring in, your manager or someone else who has more experience to guide you a couple of times. None of us were born doing this. We all need to learn, what 6-month-old do you know is doing this? They're not.
Well, my 6-year-old is very good at negotiating, so and I
Oh,
don't really
six
know where
years
he's.
old. Yes. I said 6-month-old. 6-month-old, they don't have the skills yet. 6 years old, they know exactly what they're doing.
I really like this point because it's all about giving opportunities, and it's all about what you want. If you want to learn, if you're motivated, that there's other things that people cannot teach you. That's something that
Mhm.
you need to be yourself. Like if you practice, if you learn, if you're motivated, and then the other things are going to come with time. And I really like that point that you're touching. But also, when it comes to negotiation, you need to ask the right questions as well, right?
And Jan mentioned a book. Everyone
Mhm.
read it if you haven't. If you're a CSM or in a sales sort of function, never split the difference. It is such a great book to read because it is the fundamental sort of um, pitfall that I see CSMs falling into, the negotiating against themselves. And so often they go into a conversation, they see the customers getting angry about something, and so they throw a discount into the mix without understanding if the price is actually the problem. And
Yeah.
so, really start to understand what the actual problem is and why they're actually upset before you start to go down the path of what you need to negotiate. And so often I see CSMs that are held against a bonus based off of a retention number, throwing in discounts all the time just to try and get that across the line, even though you don't actually need to do that. Um, Whereas the CSMs who are incentivized on renewal dollars, they barely ever give discounts because they know that's money out of their own pocket, right? So
Right.
it's a very interesting sort of dichotomy of the way that CSMs renew or negotiate, or even think about concepts like when should I throw a discount in, or what I need to actually do to understand what the customer needs in that situation.
And, it's so true because throwing money at a problem, it rarely solves it.
Mm-hmm.
Whether you're
Yeah,
trying to do it as a
absolutely.
discount or here, I'll give you $50. All right.
Yeah,
So you gave me $50. So I'm still
And then
mad,
customers, they get
you
used
know?
to it.
yeah,
So
exactly,
they get used
Like
to
exactly.
it. They
what,
get used to the
yeah,
candy.
exactly. Like you want to, look, I just Googled discovery questions and then popped up, for sales for CS. I chose CS and like there's so many articles and so many different,
Hmm.
webinars out there and all of that. You really want to understand like first, what is the problem? What are you really upset about, because and that also gets into de-escalating and de-escalating situations, right? And so often the discount or whatever the role that money may be like is the last option because that isn't really the problem. The
Hmm.
problem is either a lack of value or it's that they don't trust you because of other things or because something has happened in the way that the onboarding or how it's been built out. There's so many other things. Fix the problem. Fix the problem, or at
Yeah.
least understand what the problem is. And if you're not sure how to fix it, get some help. Like none of us were born doing this.
Yeah,
Talk to
absolutely.
others, talk to your manager, get more understanding, get some more experience under your belt if this
I've
is
told
your question.
Yeah.
I've told a number of CSMs, the concept of looking the bull in the eye, and negotiation is not easy. You've got somebody else sitting on the side of the table that's going to as want to pay as little as they can, and you know what the value of your product is. You put that value on the table, and you just and you can sit there quietly, and it's okay. The silence is okay, right? I mean, it's better than them yelling at you. And just wait until they come back. Don't then negotiate against yourself, because that's where you start going down a slippery slope. The moment you devalue your own products, that's when um, you've lost the battle, because then there's no sort of bottom where you can actually stop at. You need to
Yeah.
set that bottom and then be able to work your way from there.
So unfortunately, Nav had some technical issues and he had to log out. But we're gonna still continue this because yeah, there's still a lot to talk about when it comes to selling in customer success. And we have to remember that the hard part has been done. We have the customer already. Now let's take advantage of it, right? Sales already, marketing, sales, they did their job. and now they're with us. Now we are covering a
Okay.
need, and they're with
I
us, right?
just have to interrupt you though. The
Why?
hard
Tell me.
part is not the sales and the marketing and sales part. That's not the hard part. The hard
Okay.
part is everything post sales, because that is forevermore.
Yeah.
It's setting up onboarding correctly and making certain that that sets them up for success. It's working out adoption and optimization and keeping people engaged in using your product and making certain that they reach their success, so that then you can sell to them again, basically, right? The renewals, upsell, cross sell, all of that, so that then you can turn them into advocates, so then they help you bring in even easier sales that are less
Yeah.
expensive, which is when they advocate for new people to check out your product,
Yeah.
right? Which is the
Definitely.
least expensive and the least challenging. And I'm not trying to say that marketing and sales isn't a tough job. Those are very tough jobs. It's just, it's
Eh,
not the hardest. No, they are. Oh, you
yeah.
ever
Of
been
course.
on the
Of
line with
course.
that? Oh,
Of course.
it's sales is not easy, but I would say that it's not the hardest part of the journey, because there's so many more things that can go wrong
Yeah.
once you try to basically deliver on the product and have a product that can deliver for your customers.
Yeah. I was
Sorry,
thinking.
had to interrupt that, had to do it.
No, it's perfect. It's perfect. I was thinking. I was analyzing stuff different though, because I was like, how can we upsell, cross sell if we don't have the customer first? But there's a lot of things, and that's true. There's a lot of things that can actually go wrong. Like if something goes wrong, we're gonna lose them, right?
Well, yeah, because let's say you're supposed to take 2 weeks for your onboarding and instead it takes 6 months. I can
Hmm.
guarantee you that when it comes renewal, if they renew with you, they're going to start off by saying, I want a discount because I didn't use your product for 6 months and I was supposed to have used it then. Now, that's something where they do want that discount and
Hmm.
they're really angry about that onboarding, right?
Right.
And
Right.
so you can't necessarily change the onboarding retrospect for that company or that customer. You can try and change onboarding for future customers, but otherwise you're doing a number of things to try to make up for getting off to a bad start, right?
Yeah.
Because then they're less likely to adopt and optimize your product as well, and certainly not by, if you're on an annual renewal, certainly not by then. And if you don't do a successful annual renewal and you don't get them going well and they're not optimized, it's really hard to upsell and cross sell to them.
Yeah. And you know, now that it comes to my mind, going back to experience, there are different type of customers as well with different personalities that it's part of our negotiation skills to determine what type of personality are we talking to. Is this a person that is asking for unlogical stuff? Is this a person who is difficult to start a conversation with? Do you agree to this? Do you agree that there are actually different type of customers with personalities that we can learn how to deal with that, so we can actually open that nutshell?
Well, yeah, sure. I mean, obviously, if there's, we all have different kinds of personalities and we all have different types of responsibilities, right? And so part of understanding how to enter into a conversation with these customers is, well, in the first place, to not feel like, help them not feel like they're being sold to, right? But
Yeah.
instead, if what you engage in with them is, you have this problem, this is a pain point for you, you're trying to achieve this business outcome, right? And making certain that you've done those discovery questions so that you really understand what they're trying to achieve with their business, and then you have a product that will actually meet that need and help them. Then instead what you're saying to them is, I think I have a good solution for you. This is the kind of stuff that might get you promoted, right? Like, I was working with somebody, I was coaching with somebody, literally was able to show that she had helped, I think it was like 6 or 9 different people, like in her highlights or in resume, it was like, how many people she had helped get promoted,
Oh,
right?
wow.
Like, if you can say that you help your customers so much, right, that they actually get promoted because of the way you help them meet their business outcomes and look like a rock star,
Mm-hmm.
then they're not negotiating price point and pushing back and that sort of thing. They see that you're going to help them,
Yeah.
right? And that's a way where you think like, oh, I can't sell to my customer because I'm their friend, I'm their advisor. Like, no, that if you're helping them and you're helping them meet their business goals, first of all, they're going to appreciate that. Second of all, they didn't ring you up in order to be your buddy. They rang you up because they had a business need.
Yeah.
They need a business outcome. And
They need that
that
to
is
be
the
solved.
nature of your relationship. It is
Yeah.
business,
Yeah.
right? And even though I stay in touch with some of my old, customers from when I was an individual contributor, and we don't have a business relationship anymore, that doesn't mean that when we were working together that I didn't help them reach that rock star status. I did.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
they appreciated it.
Well, I mean, at the end, we can really build really good relationship. I mean, we're not only B2B or B2C. I learned that we are also age to age, human to human, right? And
Yeah,
that's
right.
part of it. That's part of it. That's something that
Yeah.
I heard from Sahil. So the other challenge of the day is actually understanding data. Which data
Mm.
should we start reading? And that's part of being proactive in customer success as well, right? Like actually going through the data and saying, okay, based on these numbers, based on this, I can try to do this. I can try to do this. And now when it comes to data, oof, there's a lot that can be done, but we're going to stick to selling. Jan, what are those metrics that you suggest people to actually start taking a look at that helps them read in the future a little bit?
Sure. Well, again, we're going to be talking about metrics and CS office hours. So that's exactly what we are going to talk about. And first of all, just understanding your book of business and
Mm-hmm.
which customers are paying you more or have sort of a gap in terms of how much they're paying versus what products or how much they could be paying, in terms of if you upsold them, like where that is referred to as sort of white space. So understanding who's sort of maxed out versus where are your opportunities, your white space, and that sort of thing. Part of that too, though, is understanding how they're using your product. And depending upon, you also need to understand, like for product usage, what kinds of things you should be checking for. For some types of products, if they're always logged in, so checking if they've logged in doesn't do anything. Whereas others, checking, if they've even logged in and how often they log in, like that's the first step. And then there might be other things that they're doing. Like if you'd expect that they should be running these reports and you don't see it, or they run
Yeah.
these reports very frequently. And so now you think, okay, this means something else. I could sell them something else, right? Like, so
Yeah.
you need to identify and understand what are the key metrics for your product in your customer base. And once you've identified those, then you need to understand which things are sort of like if somebody's on track and best practice, or somebody's
Mm-hmm.
off track and they're not doing what you would expect, and that makes them at risk. Or the ones that are in the middle, that is then your white space, right? And so you might need to help them optimize the product, in which case then you can help, you can, suggest, having them purchase more. There might be others who are optimized. And so there might be other things that you might sell into those folks who are optimized, or at least identify if somebody is maxed out, they have the products that they should have, and they're using them in the most optimized way, and that's it, then you're just going to be on maintenance mode because you want to renew
Yeah.
them, right?
Yeah.
So, like identifying what is going on in these different buckets within your book of business.
Identify. It's the
And then
second
what are
time.
the actions that you want to take based upon those different groups? Because
Yeah.
what happens is, and you were asking earlier about being proactive versus reactive, and if you don't work through what's happening with your book of business, then what happens is the folks who are at risk, they're going to take all your time, and they're going to be calling you, and they're going to be angry, or maybe even people are successful. Maybe they just like to call you a lot and say, why don't I get more? Why don't I do this? Why don't you do that?
Type
Whatever,
of
right?
customers.
And then
Mm-hmm.
you're in that reactive place, and that hasn't moved you forward. that hasn't moved you forward in terms of revenue. It hasn't even moved you forward with the rest of your book of business that isn't calling you up. And that's a real disservice to them because you could be doing things to help them. And so that's why it's so important to look at that book of business, analyze what you should be doing, and then plan out how you want to spend your day.
Yeah.
And that's another reason when you were talking about if we should be doing support or not. The reason why we shouldn't do support, one is because it takes away the time from doing those proactive things. But
Mm-hmm.
also, it doesn't even help support or your customer. You want that to go into support tickets. You want that to go into support tickets so that they can get the help more quickly that they need. And also so that support knows, hey, we actually have 10 times the amount of tickets
That
than
can
we
be
thought we
tracked.
did in this area. We do need to get this fixed with engineering. And if the CSMs are doing all of those support tickets instead, they don't have that information. They don't have that data. So you're also not helping other parts of your organization work with the data that they need, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
data goes on in a number of different areas, but regardless, it should help every part of your company be proactive.
Yeah, it's amazing, Jan, because there's a lot that needs to be done for a sell or upsell or cross sell to happen. It's a lot of actions that, if we do those actions, the positive reaction is going to be we're going to keep the customer, they're going to be advocates, and they're going to buy us more. And that's the idea, right? And it's
Yep.
not done by ourselves. And it's interesting
Mm-hmm.
as well because it's the second time I hear identify. People, part of being proactive is also identifying, asking the right questions. How are you, Mr. Customer? How are you, Mrs. Customer? How are you measured? And understand their world as well to know how to help them. Something that
It's
helps
all
me.
about the questions. Yep.
It's
It's the questions you
proactive.
ask of your data. It's the questions you ask of your customer. It's the questions you ask of yourself. How could I learn more? How could I be more proactive? How could I do better? Yep.
Yeah.
Always about the questions.
And unfortunately, it's time to start wrapping up. I know
Yes.
people that maybe we left some stuff behind. Maybe we did not touch on some points, but we did our best to touch on everything in the time that we have here, and to, I don't know, give you tools as well for you to start using. One tool that I use, which is really simple, maybe will help those transition into customer success. Do a list of the features that you have, do another list of the needs of your customer, what you have learned from them, and start matching up. And visually, it's easier as well. That works for me. Jan, any last words when it comes to what literally strategy do you use? Simple strategy do you use for selling?
Well, I mean, I would go back to sort of understanding the book of business and
Mm-hmm.
understanding how to help your customers in ways, like what buckets you might assign in terms of what activities, proactive activities you can do, and
Mm-hmm.
um, and you can almost, in a sense, think of it as a one to many. If you have 10 customers that need this, how can you set them up for success and, and help them and maybe even set up emails or an office hour topic for it and, whatever it might be, right? If you have 30 customers who need this other type of help, again, you can do similar things or take a look at customers that have been successful and have done these things well and how it's impacted their
Ah,
business.
yeah,
And then you can feature them and even say, hey, I'm going to bring in this really successful customer into my office hour to talk about how they optimize this part of the product and how they used it to help increase X, Y, or Z, right? And then
yeah,
you send that out to your customers, especially the ones who need that and need that. Now they're not hearing it from you, they're hearing it from another customer, right? And that makes it even more meaningful to them. And then
yeah,
your other customer feels really good and it's like, oh, look, I'm doing well, I'm doing best practice, and they can promote themselves and you can promote them and all of that. So like it ends up being sort of a win-win-win, like a win all the way around. And so
yeah,
there's a lot of different kinds of things you can do if you feel like you don't have the time to reach out to each one individually. There's still one to many ways that you can do it.
Yeah, this is so fun. Like I love so much customer success and talking
Yeah.
about it, and there's a lot to do. But if you're a person that you always want to do new stuff, this is the right place for you. It's time to wrap up. Jan, thank you so much for your time. And I want to wrap up just by saying, remember the right person, the right product at the right time. And
Yeah.
let's keep learning, growing, and improving the world of customer success. Until next episode. Jan, thank you so much.
Thank you. Love it.
Bye bye.
Enjoyed it.